Assalamu alaikum, my students. Good morning. This is me, د.هاني الحسني, and I give the course of Grammar 3 for students senior level and sophomore student. So I think we have done a lot with you in the previous weeks, and today we have to continue in an idea that related to modals or modal verbs. And for sure, if we have to do kind of overall summary or synopsis for the modal verbs, we understand that modal verbs, it's about talking must, should, ought to, may, and might, shall, should, can, could, will, would. All these verbs it listed under modal verbs and it called modals. So here if we look at section 1, basic modal introduction, and when we have modal introduction we need to talk about modal auxiliary or modal verbs, and some books they call it modal auxiliaries, other books they say modal verbs. In the same time we have to understand that it always comes as an auxiliary. Why? Because after these verbs it should be an original verb, and that's why that's called modal auxiliaries. So we have can, could, had, better, may. So had, better, I think we rarely use had, better. So in grammar 3 and advanced level we have to understand and notice how to list had, better in our thought and mind, because we understand that we have can, could, may, might, must, ought, shall, should, will, would. But had, better, it's a new structure for auxiliary, which is almost rarely found it in the previous years, or in grammar 1 and 2 we didn't talk about it, and that's why in grammar 3 here it listed into the modal auxiliaries. So if I bring to you a question about true or false, if I say had, better is under the modal verbs, you have to tell me true. And here you can see like there is no subject verb agreement for the modal verbs or modal auxiliaries. Why? Because all of them they followed, or the pronoun followed with the modal auxiliaries without any kind of problem. No need to add any additional suffixes for the auxiliary modals. That's why it's called modals for no final ending, and that's the case for modals. We are quite sure when we put any modal we have to follow it with original verb without any suffixes. That's how we deal with the auxiliary verb. And here we have like an example. The only exception is ought, which is followed by an infinitive to. So the ought, usually the structure for ought should be followed by to. He ought to go to the meeting, but in all over the basic or fundamental point related to modals, it's like this: she can do it, he can swim, he can drive, and that's how we deal with it. It should be simple verb, or the verb should be simple. No need to think about past or future for it. Why? Because that's the way for modals. So phrasal modals, after we finish the auxiliary modals, we have the phrasal modals. And the phrasal modals here, when we use able to, going to, and supposed to, have to, and have to, that's how to pronounce it. Here the phrasal modals is an expression meaning that is referring to ability or the possibility for doing something. And you know, like when we use it, he is able to travel anywhere, or he is going to submit a homework on time. That's the way for dealing with phrasal. I think all of you, you haven't had any problem dealing with these issues, unless if you didn't realize or memorize the rules. And we have here exercise, complete the sentences with to or theta, or mean nothing. So here I have got to turn. And here another example, you know, applying for college shouldn't be so much work. We couldn't add here to, because we have the modal auxiliary and then we should follow it with be. So you can continue this question by your own. Let's move to section 2. Then with section 2 we have must, have to, or have to, and have got to. So have got to, we need to understand that the necessity, like the whole section is about how to show listeners or those who followed your chatting or writing, there is something necessary here. So when we mention must, we always realized or pointed out that must should be used with something complementary or obligatory. Why? Because you cannot use must or have to without using it for a context of obligation or a context of something very mandatory. No one can use must or have to if there is no rule, and the rule, anybody can break it or will break it, will be punished, and that's why we use must. So here, all applicants must take an entrance exam. So that's the obvious, clear rule, and we can find maybe this rule on the website of the maybe university or institution, or it can be in the entrance hall or for the exam. So all applicants must take must, and you cannot violate or break the rule. That's for sure. If you get into the exam without going to the entrance, so I think they can kick you out. And all applicants have to take an entrance. So it has like necessarily or necessity, but less than must. In the same way, we can use both of them for mandatory rules or mandatory task or duty. And here, if we mention there is no other choice, it means I couldn't find another solution, because must and had to didn't give you options. So it's kind of requirement, you couldn't exceed it without doing what they wanted. That's how we use must and have to. Number C, D, E, F, we have here the frequent use of have to. We can use it to indicate something urgent or something important to us. It doesn't mean the rule like must. Sometimes I put it for the significant point or something I have to do in case if I need the priority of anything in my life. So here I'm looking for Sue. I have to talk to her about our lunch date tomorrow. So I have to talk to her It means I have to find her because we couldn't go to the date or lunch without preparation. That's why I can't meet her for lunch because I have to go to business meeting at 1. So the case here, he have to talk to her because he canceled the lunch meeting as he had another meeting for his work, and that's why the necessity here, it showed there is a change in time, and the change in time make him change his schedule and find out that the priority for business is better than doing that lunch meeting. And that's why it's not about the rule, it's about the way for priority to change the meeting. Number D here, cell phones must be in your backpacks during class. So no one can show the cell phone in front of you because why? Because the cell phone or the mobile can affect the way of teaching, or it make noises from time to time if it rings regularly, and that's why you have to keep it in your bag. You cannot show it in the front. And here they say must be, and must be here usually recognize the rules or instructions. Usually when we read we can understand that it's something compulsory or something that I couldn't break because it's kind of requirement for the or for one who requested from all of us. E. Johnny, you must stay away from the stove. It's very hot. So that's kind of order. I asked him to stay away, and that's the rule. If you didn't stay away, maybe I could hit you or slap your face. That's how I can deal with that situation. Must stay away, it means you can't be closer. If you get closer, I can hit you or punch you to show you that it's forbidden for you to be closer to that stove. Maybe later it can burn you, and that's a big trouble. Do you have to leave? So that's a way for question. Do you have to leave? So do you have to leave? That kind of common question about sometime like you have different meeting and I raise my hands up. So others will tell me like, do you have to leave? So G and H is about your pronunciation. I have to, I has to. So have to and has to, it's a way for pronunciation. I, G, K, it's have got to. I have got to go now. I have to got to know. So this is kind of expression. This expression seem like I have to, but I have got to, it's kind of informal. Informal speaking or informal writing. I couldn't use it in kind of writing formally, but I have to use have to for formal and informal, and have to can also use for a question. Do you have to go? Do you have to go now? Last, I have got to go. I have got to. So got to, like you don't have to pronounce it separately. Sometimes we can do that kind of contracts or contradiction with or contraction, like I have got to go, I have to got to go, I have to this, I gotta do. So the way of dropping. So sometimes no need to pronounce have. I gotta go. So I gotta go. It's omitting or omission of have. That's how the native speaker deal with I have got to go. I gotta go. It means I have got to go. So we have here exercise. This exercise you have to show, have got to, must, grammatically correct. However, must is more often found in the context. In each pair, which sentence do you think is more common? So here we have sentences and we have to define or determine and distinguish which one is suitable or common for our pronunciation. So here your signature on the document has to be legible. So that's the first one. Your signature on the document must be legible. So if we look at the first one, we can understand that the question is related to something like more closer to law, and here we can use must, like your signature must be legible. And why? Because you cannot leave this document without your signature. So you can continue the second one by thinking about it deeply. We also here need to understand the others, like here for the speaking, and last there is warming up for 9.3. So if we want to look at 9.3, we have to make sure that lack of necessity, it's how to add negation, add not or must not. That's how we do the negation for the necessity modal auxiliaries. So that's very important for you to understand how to add the negation. Then to continue in section 3, lack of necessity, we said that we have negation using not. Tomorrow is a holiday, we don't have to go. We don't have to go to class, so it means here it's not necessary. I can hear you, you don't have to shout. So also it's another meaning for no need to shout or no need to raise your voice. Prohibition, it means it's prohibited. Something prohibited, it's forbidden. You must not tell anyone my secret. So here it's prohibited and it's forbidden to inform any person about the secret. And for sure, if you pronounce or if you tell anyone, maybe it can be consequences or it can be such a problem for the person who is telling you that information. Do not or don't tell anyone my secret. You can't tell anyone my secret. You would better not tell anyone my secret. And here must not is very strong. Speakers generally express prohibition with imperatives as in D. So imperative here, like I inform you to not tell anyone, and the mention here must not is very strong. It means it's something like mandatory, and it's not preferable to use a must not in the speaking too much, but don't tell and can't tell, or you would better not tell. It's a good expression that speakers generally use to express their prohibition. So that's what we need from that lesson. You can continue to answer exercise 8, like here to do like kind of write negative form. College applicants must write and say as part of admission process. Negative college applicants do not have to write. So here another example, we have got to let's say, buy groceries on the way home. Negative, we have got not to buy groceries. So you can continue somehow the other exercises. We also can here in exercise 11, you can show the advice. What advice would you give him? He should see the dentist, he should wait, he should call, he could put an ice pack, he ought to take some pain medicine. So these statements or sentences is for speaking activity. So number 4, we have advisability suggestions. We have should, ought to, had better, and could. And when we mention you should study harder, you ought to study, drivers should pay, drivers ought to pay. So should and ought to almost closer to the meaning of you could or you can. And here the advisability or suggestion. And when we use the word should, it means you suggest or propose something for others, and it's also for positive meaning or good idea. That's how we prefer using ought to and should. So ought to and should, it's very good, it has very good usage when we use it for the statement of suggestion. I ought to study tonight, but I think I will watch TV instead. So I will watch TV instead here. It's the same, like native speaker often pronounce ought to or like oughta. Oughta, that's about pronunciation. And here the negation of should, shouldn't, and ought not to. But it is not commonly used in negative. So you can find a little or rare statements that ought use with negation. Last, we had better, stop at. So had better, should, ought to, it's usually stronger, and often had better implies a warning or threat. So when I ask you a question, true or false, had better implies a suggestion. You should tell me it's wrong because it talks about warning and threat of possible bad consequences. So warning or threat. So another example in G, you would better or you had better. You had better instead of saying you, when you write it, like no need to write had fully, so you can use the contraction. You had better take care of it. So you can write it down here by make contraction and just keep D. You'd better not be late. This is for negation. You would better not be late. You had better not be. Better not. So we cannot use you hadn't as we use to know, but here the case for negation, you'd better not to or not be late. I am having trouble in math class. You could talk to your teacher or you could ask and to help you with your math. So could, it's about your ability. When we talk or use could, it's about possibility or your ability to do something. You could ask, you could try, and maybe you should talk to your teacher. And here maybe it softens the strength of the advice. Maybe there is a little of doubt or uncertainty. Maybe usually for uncertainty, because you can ask is kind of advice of the structure use of may, but in the same time it has kind of issue related to uncertainty when we use may, and could use for possibility. So two other common ways to give softer suggestion is might and would, but is not listed yet. We will wait for another exercise, and here we still into kind of speaking exercises. We are not here into speaking, but here there is something in exercise 15. We should use should or have to or must. A person has to or must eat in order to live. A person should eat a balanced diet. So two sentences with different like words or auxiliary verbs. And here what we find, a person must eat in order to live. So this is general statement, and you understand that there is no advice in it, because when you didn't eat, it means you will not live. But for the diet, if you need your balance and you need your body to be fit, so you should eat a balanced food or a balanced diet food. Number two, the weather is dark and gloomy right now. Maybe we should go somewhere warm for our vacation. We should go somewhere for our vacation. B, we have to start looking at places on the internet. On the internet, or we have to start looking. So that's urgent and it's important and significant. You can continue the other exercises and we can discuss it on Zoom. Let's move to number 5 and last. We say that be supposed to. So be supposed to or should. It's about expectation. When I use supposed to, I supposed to eat earlier. So I expect to do this exercise, or I supposed to have it earlier on the time. And here we have some example about suppose, like the game is supposed to begin at 10. So I anticipated that this game will start at 10. Maybe it will be a little bit late. Like maybe sometimes the game will start at 10 and suddenly it's too snowy and the ground is snow and the stadium is full of snow. That's why they ask for making the game off for maybe 20 minutes until they clean everything and then they can continue. So supposition or expectation here, it's based on the schedule. And number 2B, the committee is supposed to vote by secret ballot. So the ballot here, it's like kind of secretive. And the expectation here, no one will see the voters. Those who vote, no one can recognize them, and that's how we anticipate. So be supposed to expresses the idea that someone, I, we, they, the teacher, lots of people expect something to happen. So the expectation, it's totally in our minds. Always we have that doubt and we have that thinking to do something or to think about something in our way. Therefore, in C, I am supposed to go. So I'm supposed to go. It's about the behavior, and you can use it. I guess, I think, I believe. So I believe, I think, I guess that children are supposed to put away their toys before they go to bed. The mail should be here soon. The mail, so I received the mail and I'm still waiting for the mail. And here, the mail should be here soon, or Amy should be back anytime or any minute. So we still in case of anticipation. So expectation from the meaning, from the statement. When you say the mail should be here soon, I'm waiting. If you say Amy should be back anytime or any minute, it means we are still anticipating their coming, or she's coming very soon. The children are supposed to put away their toys before they go to bed, so I'm expecting before they sleep, they have to leave their toys away from them. That's it for the last in this video. You can also do the exercise which sentence in each pair is stronger. So we have to answer that kind of context because it deals with the meaning. So you had better wear a seat belt, you have to wear a seat belt. So I think the better one, it means you have to wear a seat belt, because if you didn't wear it, it will be a big trouble, and this an order. We are supposed to bring ID, we have to bring ID. We are supposed, this very stronger, because we are not sure, we still in uncertainty. That's the way for understanding the sentence. You can continue the other, and thank you for listening for the first 5 sections in chapter 9 about auxiliary verbs, the modal verbs. I will do another video for you to continue the whole chapter, and thank you very much for listening. I wish you a great weekend.